Mike Wilson here, the host of the Stutter with Confidence podcast, and I'm very happy today to be joined by Bob Adams from the UK. And Bob, if you would, to tell us where you live in the UK and what you do.
Okay, Mike, great to be here and love your podcast. Well done. Yeah, I'm in the UK. I live in a small place which is in Nottinghamshire. You might have heard of Robin Hood. I don't live in his oak tree, but I don't live that far from there. I live there and I actually work in Doncaster. Hence, if you can see the shirt, I run a self-help group in Doncaster. I'll tell you more about that in due course. Work-wise, it is a very simple question, but a slightly complex reply. So I'll try my best, Mike. I'm a qualified performance coach and life coach, and also solution-focused therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy, NLP as well. And in my work, I work for a charity. I combine my art form as a performance artist with the other strands I've got. So we work with a wide variety of people. I've just been involved in a 6-year project working with young people, age 18 to 24, who were either extremely anxious, and if they weren't when they started, they were after they worked with me. They might have had autism, Asperger's, alcohol issues, mental health issues. And I work with other groups as well. So we use the arts to facilitate change. And obviously with my other skills, there's like a therapeutic edge, but it's not art therapy. That's a different thing. So basically performance artist with additional skills.
That's very interesting. And so what's an example, just so people can sort of wrap their head around the kind of thing that you're doing, like what's an example of somebody that you've worked with? Obviously, we're not going to name names for confidentiality reasons, but sort of, I don't want to say typical, but what's an example of somebody that you've worked with some anxiety challenges in their life, and you've used, whether it's the acceptance and commitment therapy or some of those skills to help them live a better life?
Yeah, there was one young man in particular who springs to mind. He was working with me on as a participant, as a client, on the piece of work that ran for 6 years. And I managed to work with him, so he became a volunteer on another piece of work. So for him, that was a massive step. And we would do a debrief at the end of every session. So his role was to support the other participants and to make drinks and things like that. And he developed from, he could make the drinks, but he couldn't actually speak to any of the participants. So in the end, he'd be calling out, Mike, what would you like to drink? Biscuits, great. Bring over the drinks, he'd interact. We then unpicked in the meetings that we had aspects of his life that he wanted to work on. So it's not me telling him what to do. With solution-focused therapy, the client is the expert. So it's just giving them that little nudge so they can say, oh yes, when I do this, this happens. So he went from, again, not being able to even make small talk, the kind of thing that I can see from your podcast, you're great at. And he'd come back, oh, I was waiting for a bus and I had a chat with this man, and it was great. I can do it. And his whole life, he just started to blossom. He was like this seedling. And as far as he was concerned, he was one of the weeds. And all I did was apply the water, and he gradually grew and he blossomed. It was fantastic. and he still had lots of issues in his life. It's not a magic wand, but he just came on so well. He cares for his mum. He's got friends, all things like that. So that's using the therapeutic approaches, and then using the juggling performance side. With quite a few of my clients, we'd be juggling. It doesn't matter exactly what, it could be balls. Scarves actually are good because they float down. And I would, first of all, demonstrate, and I would intentionally let one just float and fall on the floor. And I'd say, have a look outside. And what? Have a look outside. Has the world ended? And go, no. Say, has anyone rushed in, pointed at me and laughed? No. So what do I have to do? And say, well, pick up the scarf, continue. I said, yeah, that's it with life as it is with stuttering. Basically, there will be ups and downs, and the world doesn't end. It might feel like that, but it doesn't actually end. We just get on and we learn from that. So, and they were getting these like light bulb, not obviously not real light bulbs, that's the magic side. But they'll be having these flashes of, wow, yeah, it makes sense. And that just little steps, I think in the stuttering world and in life, we can be very focused on making these massive steps. And there's some people online, oh yes, I can do this. Oh wow, I'd love to do that. But it's the small steps that we can all achieve that enable us to make long-lasting change. And I'm sure I know that the people that you work with, Mike, that they've all experienced that. But that's it, the little steps. Big steps are great, but it's the little steps that count and last. So yeah, lots of the clients done things like that, and maybe they participate in a group and they realize that their ideas can be heard and they have worth. And in the Selfhelp group, we transfer things there. I was talking to one of my friends from the group, lovely guy, and he can be seen now, but like, not all of us, but like a lot of us that stutter, he chose to not speak, not participate. He pretend to work late at work to avoid going to family things. And he's completely fine for me to share these things, just so you know. And he'd go home from work, and his wife was completely cool about the fact that he stammered. But he'd sit down, instead of saying, I've had a good day at work or a hard day, he would text. And she was sat right next to him and would text back, and they'd have a text conversation that went on probably for years. And then by partaking in the group, which I can talk more about, and NHS, which is the National Health Service therapy, which has changed my life, he blossomed as well. And he's a really warm, lovely, humorous guy, which his family can enjoy, we enjoy. He's changed his job, and it's just great. Does he stammer? Yes, because we stammer. That's what we do. It's just a different way of speaking. Does it hold him back? No. That's, for me, is the key. So I'm just giving you a couple of different examples there.
Yeah, and it's that, I like to think of it like unleashing human potential, right? Because, you know, there was all these things that they wanted to say, I'm sure, wanted to do, and wanted to be free to just go through their day and not be perpetually worried about what might be around the corner. And I think you're absolutely right, that feeling, and maybe this is sort of hardwired into us at some level, because, you know, our ancestors, I mean, if you were too different, if you didn't fit in with the tribe, you know, in many places you might be cast out. If you're cast out, you're dead, right? You're not going to survive without without the group. Whether the neighboring hostile tribe might kill you or the animals might get you, whatever the case may be. And so
Yeah.
perhaps that's just hardwired into our evolution, that we desperately want to fit in, and we have a natural urge to, not be different at all. And that's reinforced in childhood from other kids. I mean, right? The whole fitting in as a child is, I think it might be changing a little bit lately with the anti-bullying culture that's come about in the last, let's say, couple of decades or few decades or so. But for the most part, I think for all of history, the parents just wouldn't get involved in how the kids were treating each other for the most part. It's like, the kids will be kids, they'll do their thing. We're not, the parents are worried about paying their bills and all the things that adults have to worry about. Well, the kids will figure it out, and obviously the kids that were different in many cases were really singled out. So that runs deep in most of us folks who stutter, and that can really transmit forward into adulthood, where people are still, like you said, with the person that you worked with, who was, wouldn't even have a conversation with his wife sitting on the couch next to him, wouldn't go to family events. And, as that's super, those types of behaviors are super common amongst folks who stutter. And, arguably, and I'm biased in this, but I can't think of another group in the world that has more latent potential being suppressed, largely because of avoidance behaviors, than folks who stutter. I mean, and and it's so fun to watch folks bloom, like the analogy you used, and just realize, wait a second, in the case of stuttering, even if I have a bunch of big blocks here and it takes me 5 minutes to order my hamburger, while that's not necessarily fun, I'm not saying it's fun, but what happens afterwards when you look out the window, right? The lightning bolts are not crashing down to send us to the hospital or to kill us or anything. The world keeps spinning. And as it turns out, other people really don't care near as much as that kid did on the playground at 11 years old who was making fun of us,
Definitely.
That's got to be very satisfying for you to, in those instances where you see the full potential bloom, to be a part of the process.
If I can add to that, Mike, you've made some excellent points, which I agree with. And for a lot of people, and we are talking about stuttering, it's our thoughts in here. I was working at one time in a special unit for young people, mostly young males, aged 15 to 16. They had behavioral issues, were extremely violent. They'd been permanently expelled from the mainstream schools. They'd been expelled. I don't know what the American expression is. Is it expelled, excluded?
Yeah, we usually say expelled. Yeah.
Expelled. So they'd been expelled from the mainstream school, transferred elsewhere, expelled again, transferred again, expelled again. No one would have them, so they would come to us. We were like the last place. And at the time, I stammered a lot more severely than I do now, although I still do at times, as we all can. And the therapy I was having was about not changing words, not avoiding, because I would view myself as a master of avoidance. My range of words, my vocabulary, I was so proud I could change any kind of word. And instead of saying, "Oh, Mike, will you pass me the cup?" I say, "Mike, will you pass me the drinking receptacle?" And you'll be, "Oh, he's such an unusual man. I know he means the cup, but he says drinking receptacle." And I was working with a group of these young men, and they got no qualms about making fun. If you wear glasses, they make fun of that, and they were masters of manipulation and emotional control because they'd grown up experiencing that. Often they'd been abused quite severely, and or they'd abused as well. There's a host of things, and they'd had teachers who'd had years of experience. They'd had them in tears just because they wore glasses, or they were tall or short, thin or fat. And I stammered, and I would stammer something at times like that. But I was open about that. I ran the Selfhelp group, and I got a fluorescent poster, an A4 size, on my desk about the group. And they would sometimes make fun of us. Oh, you stammer? And I said, yeah, I do. Would you like to have a chat? And they, oh. So I was fine. I was completely cool about that. One time in the group, I was, because I wasn't a teacher, but I used to teach art and personal and social health education, and we're doing about food. And I used to film my groups, which I found interesting to play back and see the behaviours. And it was, what have we had for breakfast? And it was coming round to my turn. And I could have changed it to porridge, cornflakes, toast, whatever. But I'd had muesli. But actually, in those days, it was mute, 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 like that. And as you said the other day, I think something about a magnetic force drawing my eyes down, which I thought, yeah, very much like that. So I stammered a lot, eyes down, and they cracked up. They were laughing. One of them laughed so hard he fell off the chair. Another one impersonated me and was banging his head on the wall. I wasn't bothered. I'd said what I wanted to say. It took quite some time. And I said, okay, guys, that's fine. I've said that. Next one. And I played it back. I showed it to the rest of the team, you know, the staff team as well. Played it back. And I wasn't bothered because I'd said what I wanted to say. It wasn't about not stammering. But as a result of that, these young men who link into what you said hadn't reached their potential because of the behaviours and the issues that they've got. They approached me after. They'd had a word with the lad who'd impersonated me and had banged his head on the wall, and he came and apologised, which for him was a massive thing to do. Two came and said the stepdad stammered, and the other one, his uncle, stammered. Another one stammered himself, because interestingly, in this unit where I worked, the percentage of pupils that came that stammered was higher than one would expect in that age range. And part of that, not all, part was because of stammering, their behaviour was very aggressive. One wouldn't read out loud and it become violent and aggressive. I was the first person who'd ever spoken to him about stammering, and he didn't even punch me, which was great. So yeah, these people hadn't reached their potential. The people that stammered there definitely hadn't. I was so pleased to not have avoided. Didn't matter how long it took, I said what I wanted to say. And research has shown that in the British jails, there's a higher percentage of men in there that stammer than one would expect, you know, 1 to 3%. So a massive thing for me was moving away from avoiding doing things like this, from avoiding words, avoiding doing things. One story that I didn't tell anyone for years because I was so ashamed, embarrassed. I was about 15 or 16, and I wanted to ask out this girl on a date. And she must have heard me stammer at school, but I wanted to ring her up, and I used to hate the phone, used to avoid the phone. So I waited until my parents were out, I'd recorded myself. It took me a long time to record without stuttering, saying, hello, is Claire there, please? It probably took me about an hour. These days, you can actually edit it properly and be faster. So my parents are out. I rang, my heart's going like that. Someone answered the phone, hello. So I held the receiver down, pressed play, and it said, hello, is Claire there, please? And they said, pardon? And I put the phone down and I felt about that big. I couldn't even ask this girl out. Obviously, she missed out big time. That's her loss. But it was just like one more nail being hammered into my virtual coffin, the chains being wrapped around me again. I couldn't even ask a person out for a date. It was just one of those things. The Doncaster group that I run, we actually ran an open day once, and it was called Breaking the Chains. And we're using the symbology of chains wrapping around our chests, possibly our throat, but by being open, accepting the fact that we stammer, we can shed the chains and break free and start to say what we want to say and start to be the people like yourself as a dentist. I believe, I could do with a chat with you after. We can be the people that we want to be. Some people in our group, they didn't go to university because they were afraid of speaking to people there. They didn't choose the course they wanted to do because they couldn't say the name of the course. So that's changing lives in a potentially negative way. As you can probably tell, I'm quite a chatty person. My work involves talking to a lot of folk. I love going out into parts of Doncaster where I work, talking to people on the streets about pieces of work we're doing. And if I stammer, that's fine. I tell my stammer. And a massive thing that I teach, because I coach outside of work as well. So both in work and outside, I don't really expect anyone to have a tattoo done, but I do say if you're having a tattoo, have this one. E plus R equals O. And I go, what? And I say E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. And in the stuttering world, I'm sure you've seen it on Facebook, people have gone in, like you were saying, maybe to buy a burger or a coffee, and they've stammered a lot. And the person looked and they were thinking this and that. And I'm never going there. I'm going to write and complain. And unfortunately, people reinforce, yes, you should complain. The fact that they ignored you is shocking. But I know, do we really know what's going on in the head? If they do a joke, because in England often it's, have you got your wrong teeth in? Often they're not doing that to be hurtful. They just don't tell. Like now, I'm not stammering, and I might not stammer for an hour, a minute, who knows? Then I might slowly stammer blah, 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 like that. And they might think, oh, what's going on here? They don't know how to respond. So how we respond, anything in life, we've generally got control over that. I might say I haven't if I haven't had enough food, but that's another story. So when we stutter, what's the response like? For years, I used to close my eyes, like I've shown. And I was at sit, lit. And if this wasn't just you, my eye, and I stammered like that, I say, great eye contact, thanks. As you've heard, I do stutter. And if you can just wait and keep soft eye contact, don't finish off the words, that's great. I say that in shots. And that often opens up a conversation. But this time I was in Covent Garden, and I've always had very good eye contact, except when I stutter. And I was asking someone at a stall something, and I stammered severely or a lot. Closed my eyes, looked down, but this time I didn't. I kept my eyes open and looked. And you know what she did? She waited with her eyes open. And that was the first time in 30 years of my life I'd ever seen that. All my life, I got in my head, they're saying, look, he's stupid. He can't even ask for a car. He can't say his name. He shouldn't be doing it. That was in my head. And it really did feel like a bolt of lightning came down and zapped me. I'm going, I won't swear, but it was like, beep, beep, beep. She waited. I was shocked. And that night I was staying at a friend's house. I'm sure you've seen the cartoons where there's a huge weight, 10 tons or whatever it is. And it felt like this weight had lifted off me. And I was close to tears, but because I'm British, we don't cry. I actually do cry these days, but then I did press it from the floor. But it was like, wow. And I realized I've been carrying around with me inside, unknown, subconsciously, self-hatred and anger for years, like a massive sack on my back, dragging it around like an anchor. It lifted off. Like, wow, phenomenal. And at school, I mean, I fortunately wasn't bullied. I was always quite tall, very sporty, basketball, and athletics, rugby, cricket. I used to run for the school and play football as well, soccer, I should say. Captain of the house team for this, captain of the house team for that. So Ben Johnson Summers, and he could obviously run fast. And part of that was because he stuttered, but he could become, the man because he was like extremely fast. So I was an athlete, sportsman, and I would go into school, Doncaster Grammar School. Please do not charge me for all these chairs. I'd walk into a classroom, wooden chairs with a wooden crossbar, and I'd smash it with my foot. In effect saying, Bob's here. I was called Rob then actually, but Bob's here. Don't mess with me. I'm here. So that probably had a bit of an impact on the fact that people didn't bully me. But I had a weird experience. I don't know if you've had this, Mike. I was about 11, and we used to have to read out in class. And people who don't stammer, we think it's only people that stammer like us who hate that. Loads of people hate that. But as a person that stammers, I'd have my book and I'd be reading this page. Oh, I can't say that word. I can't say, can't say that. And my turn come in front of my peers, and I go bright red, massive blocks, loads of repetitions, nightmare. And then outside the classroom, my schoolmates would say, oh, Rob, just read for us. And I'd read, and I didn't stammer. And they said, you were acting, weren't you? You were acting. And I say, yes, I was acting. So they thought all my stammering was acting. How bizarre. Because stuttering is bizarre, isn't it? It's so bizarre. So I played along with that role. It's just so weird, so weird.
So you were playing you were accepting their guess that whenever you were stuttering, you were playing a stutterer just for the fun of it, or because you were sort of
yeah. I must have been a great actor. So every year in my school life, every day in my school life, I was acting. Oh dear me.
That moment that you were describing in your life, where you were having a massive block and you were looking down, and you brought it back up and you saw the lady's expression and she was just sitting there looking at you, waiting for you to finish. I had those similar experiences. And now for me, I didn't stumble upon it myself. It was my first year of college, and the whole first semester, they didn't introduce any speech techniques whatsoever in speech therapy. They just brought me around campus and made me talk to people. And it probably took, I don't know, at least 500 times of me walking up to somebody, excuse me, where's the book? Michael, look him in the eye. Michael, look him in the eye, right? So like that force of gravity, right? Just pulling you away from facing that thing that you're so freaked out about, which is what are they going to think, right, about me? And we all know, like you were saying, the look of confusion sometimes that you can get from people at first, are like, just trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. But for one, I realized that people realize a lot faster that it's a speech impediment when you're looking at it. When we're looking away, somebody comes up, hey, what's your name? People are like, what's going on? Is he going to tell me his name? Does he not want to talk to me? What is going on? Whereas when you're Mike Wilson, nice to meet you. And again, I think it's probably hardwired into us, right? Because our species was looking at each other with eye contact probably long before we figured out that we could even speak, as a species. Certainly eye contact means something in the animal kingdom, obviously, a lot of times. And so that probably far predates our species, but it's something about it that just keeps the person more with us. Now a lot of people will stay with you even if you're looking away, but then, like you said, your mind is filling in the blanks. Oh God, what, because the truth is we have no idea what expression is on their face. We have no idea how they're reacting when we're looking over here, which not only breaks the communication, right? All the nonverbal communication is out the door when we're looking over here, and, we have no idea what's going on with them, but also our brain is just filling in the blanks on what they must be thinking. And there's just something about it. It looks more comfortable. It looks more confident when you're looking at somebody, right? And this is true whether you have a stammer or not. When someone's talking to you and they'll never look at you, they're kind of always looking over here when they're talking like this. It's like, not maybe not even consciously. You might not even consciously think this, but it's just sort of like, what's going on? Why won't they look at me when they're talking? What's happening here? Not in even a judgmental way, but just a confused way, just sort of a disconnected sort of way. Like we're not connected in this communication. And so, yeah, and Chris Constantino also described this on the podcast, that when he got to the point where he could look people in the eye when he stuttered, it was a total game changer in his journey. And one of the big things is you realize people, the vast majority of people, will just sit there and be cool and wait for you to finish. And totally. Not, almost like they didn't even notice that you stuttered. I assume most people, if it's severe enough, I think they have to be noticing it, but they really don't care. As it turns out, the world doesn't depend on our stutter. It's not the most important thing happening. And I love that thing that you said, the event plus response equals outcome. So, yes, the events are going to happen. You will meet an occasional person who's maybe a jerk about it. That, the world is never going to have zero jerks, unfortunately. But, depending on our response is going to determine how this turns out. And, and worst case scenario, and on my peer mentorship coaching program, a question that I get sometimes when I'm describing the program in the initial one-on-one conversation with people, when I'm describing our phase one, which is based on what was done for me that first semester in college, where I have people go out and just, no technique whatsoever, no attempt to control anything. Let's go out and face our stutter and learn to look people in the eye. And a question I get fairly often, because I can hear the silence after that when I say, look, guys, if anything in phase one, I want you, this is a one-on-one conversation, look, if anything in phase one, I want you stuttering more, not less, so that we have to face it, so that we have to get in those moments where we have no idea how long it's going to take for this word to come out of our mouth, right? Or maybe even struggling, as many of us do as we, try harder to get the damn word out of our mouth, trying to push it out. But we're just going to learn just to look people in the eye. So to talk like this rather than like this. And after I say that I want you stuttering more, if anything, and during phase one, and I have them say their most difficult words, maybe go say your name, maybe ask for, whatever, the Starbucks, which you can never say Starbucks, that sort of thing. There's always a long pause with people after that. Like, did he just say he wants me stuttering more? But the big thing at that stage of it is just to realize, and I love this line, say it all the time. Look, the world continues to spin. The sun comes up tomorrow. Nothing goes hurtling, out into interstellar space because we stuttered. And people ask, what's the worst thing that's ever happened during one of these phase one, session, when people are out talking to people? And, we're now in the 6th group. And I say, well, the worst thing that's ever happened was a young lady in New Mexico, was out in the mall, and she said to somebody, she started to ask a question and was stuttering a lot. And the lady said, the lady was in a hurry. She's like, I don't have time for this. I got to go. And she walked off. And then I asked people, and you know what happened next? Nothing happened next. The lady walked off, and the young, lady in New Mexico that I was working with that was doing contacts went and spoke to the next person who was nice. And then she spoke to the next person who was nice. And she spoke to the next person who was nice. Nothing happened. Nobody went to jail. Nobody started bleeding. No lightning bolts came out of the sky. Nothing happened. The world kept spinning, and it was a stuttering moment. But so, and that's a revolutionary idea for a lot of folks who stutter, because we think, how could horrible things not happen?
And if I can say, Mark, on that, if we can accept that person might have well been in a rush, maybe they've got a train or a bus to catch, and they'd love to talk, but whether we're stammering or we're trying to sell them something or just tell them about this wonderful whatever, they just haven't got time. I was in a shop buying coffee beans, and they weren't coffee beans, they were coffee, and I call it, for me, old school stammering, when I revert back to, I'd like to buy 100 grams of those coffee beans. So lots of repetition. I've got my eyes closed like that. When I looked up, I managed to, it's weird, isn't it? That powerful pull, the magnetic force field. But I managed to pull my eyes up. I opened them, and she was looking away. So I thought, oh, interesting. So I bought the beans, and then I said, thank you for waiting. As you might have heard, I do stammer. Just a little tip. If ever anyone stammers, it's best if you can just keep soft eye contact. And I'm fully aware that this is me now saying to you, quite a few people in the online groups I'm in wouldn't, for whatever reason, maybe they don't feel comfortable or whatever, would have left the shop, posted on Facebook, this woman, she was so rude, she looked away, how dare she? But I just had a little chat and she said, oh, my uncle stammers severely and he always asks me to look away because he feels embarrassed. So I thought that was the best thing to do. So I said, yeah, some people, they might appreciate that, but most, just best if you can just, oh, thanks. And we had this chat. The door was opened. I felt good. I felt I could go back in that shop. I could buy coffee. I could see her again. And I did go back and I referenced the conversation we'd had. And, you know, I said, I actually posted about you on Facebook. Oh, right. What about? Oh, yeah, yeah. And another one, I'd been to the gym. I trained. I was a bit tired. I needed food. I went to a stall and asked for cottage cheese, but I did the old school trick. Eyes closed, cottage cheese. And she said, oh, we don't sell it. So I laughed and said, oh, that's stammering. And you don't even sell it. And we both laughed. And it was great. As opposed to me going off thinking, oh, I failed again. I failed again. I can't even ask for cottage cheese. Oh. In the past, I would never have gone in that market again. But it's just opening it up. Because a key for me, it's not about not stuttering. It's about, it's a word that you've used, it's about connection. It's about good communication. Not about whether I stammer on a word or not. It's whether I can connect with the person. I can say what I want to say, and we've got that connection. We communicate. That's to me what it's about. So I don't personally, and this is purely personally, I don't want to work on my speech. I want to work on my communication skills. And I can teach anyone in the world how, and it's a really easy technique, and I won't even charge, how to never ever have another bad stuttering day in their life, and I guarantee it. And it's a simple technique. It's all up here. There's no such thing as a good or bad day regarding some stuttering. It's a day when maybe a day or a moment when I stuttered more, or a day or moment when I stuttered less. And there's no judgment there. It's an observation. I know if I have a glass of alcohol, I didn't realize at first, and then a friend said, oh, you're stuttering a lot more. Oh, yeah. Glass of alcohol, glass of wine, preferably organic red mic if you're going to buy one. It's like a switch. And I stutter a lot for about 20 minutes. And then it goes off. It's weird. I know if I'm tired, if I have a late night, I stutter a lot more. In the past, it would be, oh, why am I stuttering? It's like a maelstrom of emotion. It's like I'm being controlled by this external force. Now I go, oh, that's interesting. I've been tucked up in mic and I've stuttered a lot. I wonder why. No idea. Or, oh yes, I had a disturbed night. It's no big deal. So if we can learn, and I know that you do this in any case, but if the stuttering community worldwide can start to shift away, take the labels off, it's not a good day. If I'll use the F word, if I'm fluent, for me, that's not a good thing. It's just a thing. It means I'm not stammering. So what? If I stammer.
So rather than attach the good or bad to it, you know, a step out of that game. Just stop playing that game.
Exactly.
Where we evaluate the quality of our day based on whether we stuttered a lot or a little bit. And, you know, I don't want to put a percentage to it, but it seems to me that a pretty high percentage of folks who stutter, at least at, you know, some stages of their stuttering journey, nothing determines the quality of their day more so than how their speech was. And,
Exactly.
you know, and I like to describe it as that's given the stuttering wolf, so to speak, which is that there's a lot of ways to describe the stuttering wolf, but essentially that sort of fearful little boy or little girl inside who's just terrified of what, you know, whether it makes us inferior if we stutter. And that's given the stuttering wolf a ton of power when we give him the authority to single-handedly ruin our day or our week or our life. Just step off of that hamster wheel, so to speak, where we're putting all of our happiness in something that we don't know how to control, you know, fully. I mean, stuttering is one of the most sort of inconsistent disorders or differences or whatever, you know, like someone that has a limp, they just limp everywhere that they walk all the time, right? You know, for us, it's like, you know, it can be super variable, obviously, from day to day or moment to moment, or whether somebody's listening or not, right? Most of us, our stutter seems to evaporate largely when we're alone, which is, you know, an eternally mysterious thing for many folks. You know, but it's that just getting away from that, you know, basically that divorcing our happiness from our stuttering, and again, focusing on the connection, because, you know, it, and something I've shared a couple of times, I think, in the past on the podcast, but so my stutter is now, you know, much, much more mild than it was for the first 41 years of my life. And so the first 7 years when I owned my dental practices, you know, I still have them, but for those first 7 years when I had the really good stutter, as I like to call it now, going, I swear there was so when I would interview dentists to work in my practice, I swear there was an instant trust that was built. And you know, I was that style from the time I got the eye contact training when I was 18 on, where I was going to say what I wanted to say. I wasn't going to not say something just because I was going to stutter. So in those initial interviews with the dentists, you know, when they were, you know, they were trying to get the job and I was seeing if I wanted to hire them, I would stutter a lot, you know, like a lot. And so this thing that people can imagine is probably, you know, sort of a personal thing for you. And it's just out there and you're just saying it anyway. And I swear people respected that. And I didn't even really think about it then. I did, though, wonder why people trusted me so much after one conversation, because they seemed to. And now I've sort of run the experiment, because now I don't stutter near as much on those calls. And it's not always apparent that I'm a person that stutters. And I swear, you know, even though the conversations go fine, it's not that instant trust, because it's not human. I mean, people usually don't give people instant trust from one conversation, which is smart. You know, you got to get to know somebody a little bit before you fully trust them. So anyway, that was something, and I spoke with Chris Constantino about this idea of stutter gain, that we can actually have some sort of deeper, more human, for lack of a better way to explain it, connections with people, like you did with the lady in the shop where you had the severe stutter and then you brought up stuttering and she told you about, you know, some folks that she knew, or was it her brother, you know, maybe uncle, who had said, you know, don't look at me, you know. So you had a conversation with her and you had much more of a connection, much more of a powerful human moment than you would have had if you didn't have the stammer and you just bought your product. Oh, thanks. Have a good day. Okay, we'll see you later. Right. That sort of thing.
Definitely. It's the vulnerability. If we feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable, I know it's kind of a current phrase now, our authentic selves. I don't know if you've ever been involved with Lee Glickstein from California, does transformational speaking, also known as speaking circles. Well worth checking out. Along with John Harrison, who you've had on, who definitely changed my life regarding my perspective of public speaking, which I actually coach as well. Lee Glickstein doesn't stutter, but one of the national conferences, we actually flew him in from California. He changed my life. He was a stand-up comic and find he couldn't go on stage because of stage fright. So he developed, it's not a technique, I call it a no technique. And you practice in the safe environment of a group, and then you can transfer it to a group of 100 or 1,000. And it's applicable to anyone, whether you're a comic, a dentist, whether you stutter, whether you don't, whether you're a police officer, whatever. And it's keeping soft eye contact. I was the first person in the UK who Sam was to be trained by him. We've been doing this at the Selfhelp group for 20 odd years, and it's fantastic. And it's about the connection. And I've done this with small groups. I've done it one-to-one where it's very intimate. And I've done it because I've done lots of public speaking. I love public speaking. Give me a crowd of 50,000, that would be great. But you can transfer it. There's a way to transfer it, and you get a connection. And it's fantastic. But I've also been, I'm a drugs educator as well. And I've been to talks by top drugs people who travel the world doing talks, and they've obviously been taught, if you feel a bit tense and you've got the audience there, just stare at the back wall. And I remember this guy, he was like this top guy, and he wasn't present at all. He was talking to the back wall. And I thought, you should come to our self-help group and do speaking circles. It was, like I said, if you look out the window, yeah, the world's still there, but if you're talking and you're looking out the window, you're not present. So a big shout out to Lee, he's still around. That changed my life. And my dad, who was a police officer and a raconteur as well, I persuaded him to come to a workshop. And I realized I'd known my dad a long time, since birth actually, but I'd never kept soft eye contact with my dad until that time. It was like, it's not, we're talking a lot about these bolts, aren't we? And it was another lightning bolt. There's a deeper level of connection with my dad. And people that stutter, it's that connection. If we can keep eye contact at moments of stuttering, it's very powerful indeed. So speaking circles, check it out. Another thing I've found, humor. People that know me and have heard me doing presentations, public speaking, or whatever, they will have heard this joke lots of times. So I'm doing a presentation and I stutter. So I say, don't worry. If you don't hear me the first time, you'll hear me the 7th. And everyone just laughs, ha, 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 ha. Bob's cool about stammering. We are as well. And then we just get on and we do whatever we're doing. And that, not an elephant in the room, that mammoth in the room, stuttering, has been pushed out of the room, and it's no big deal. I do presentations and they're good. I don't mind saying, because I'm very good at presentations. I'm available for hire. And I stutter while I do them. and it's no big deal. It doesn't stop them being powerful, connected, and all that stuff that you're excellent at. So that's another massive thing. If you can be open, and humour, obviously, I'm not saying everyone should make jokes if it doesn't suit, but if there's some way when you talking, the other people go, oh, cool, he's fine, and then we just get on. Just the key. As a dentist, I mean, you'll probably be pleased that I'm not a dentist, because I'd be doing jokes like, well, sir, I'm about to drill your teeth. I stammer. If you laugh, I've got the drill. Probably wouldn't go down well.
Bob, we should spend some time, because I've been thinking, one box I want to check in my life is to go to an open mic night for stand-up comedy, and at least step up there a couple of times and feel what the stand-up comic feels. Maybe not as far as uproarious laughs, but at least, just that experience of knowing what it's like to get up there, and your job or your role at that moment is to make people laugh. So I might need to spend some time with you to come up with some, because I don't want to do it unless I've got some at least halfway decent jokes. I don't want to be,
I'm sure you've got some. I'm sure you got some amazing personal stories. I know that time's jumped on. Just to let you know, and if ever you're over in the UK, or if ever I'm over in the States, I've been raising awareness for 20 plus years, stuttering, done free fall parachute jumps and bungee jumps and things like that. The Selfhelp group have had displays. We've discussed it in the past. If I'd have seen a poster, one poster on the wall with stammering on, stuttering on at all, I wouldn't have gone anywhere near that poster. I wouldn't have gone in that part of town. I would have avoided it. We can have a stall with information and pamphlets. A lot of people that stutter will avoid it. So as a performance artist, what we've done it as a group, and I've performed, and this is where, if we were together, Mike, we would work on a role for you. By doing fire shows, I mean, I eat fire and body burns, and my friend breathes fire. We get a crowd round. So we're on the streets. Imagine this, we've got a crowd of 300 round, because we're doing fire. And then I'm going to lay on the bed of nails, for example, 469 razor sharp, rusty 6-inch nails. Don't do it yourself. And we build up the act. And then I'm on the mic, stammering on the mic openly, and I'm saying, before I go on the bed of death, just to let you know, I stammer. Anybody else here stammer? So this is possibly Mike might go, yeah. People in the audience might raise their hand. The Selfhelp group, you sir, do you? Yes, I stammer. So then we can talk about stammering. We're raising awareness with 300 people. We developed these shirts. They've got contact details on that, the phone numbers, and it's got a bit of a joke. It says, if you stammer. That's on the back. People have made, I daren't ask, but I can write down, there's a website, there's Facebook. So by being on the mic, just thinking of you with the open mic, we can incorporate, it'd be great if we could get together and do a little performance, you and I and some more. Being open about it. I mean, there's loads of jokes about the bed of death. My friend Mike asked me if I wanted to lay on the bed of death. I didn't want to, but I couldn't say no because I stammer. All little things like that. It diffuses that bad energy around stammering. Can we laugh? Is it right to laugh at stammering? Well, if people laugh with me, not at me, great. That's fine. So yes, we can work on your stand-up, having a bit of stand-up, maybe with stammering it, maybe just part of it, on the mic, performing So get me over to the States. Yeah, national conference.
Sounds good, man. Yeah,
Rock and roll time, mate.
that sounds like a lot of fun, and some good, entertaining scenes that you guys have generated there, and it'll be good once the pandemic's over and everybody's sort of back to doing all those
Yeah.
things. But Bob, we're coming to the end of the time here. And a question I like to sometimes ask is if you could speak to your 10-year-old self or whatever age when you, and am I correct in assuming that you had some really tough times in childhood surrounding your stutter, like many of us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joining the golf club. I played golf. The golf club, just a very quick one. Very formal. We're all young men, jackets and ties, all sat round. You've got to give your name, full name, date of birth, address in front of a group of peers that you're going to play golf with and compete with for the next few years. Absolute nightmare. Absolute severe blocks. Dig a hole. Couldn't say a word. I want to be buried alive. Shocking. All up here.
Yeah, and so if you could talk to yourself, at that age or just before that age, and convey, in a concise way, what's the key message that 10-year-old Bob or whoever old you were, or a Rob or Robbie, and whatever you went by at that point, that would head off a lot of those really, really rough sort of moments and experiences as a kid, what would be that message?
Right. 3 points, I think. A repetition of points. One is, you're not alone. I was only aware of one other person in the world that stuttered. He was on TV and I couldn't cope seeing him stuttering openly. Now I go, wow, what a guy. So that's point one, you're not alone. 2, it's just how we speak. 3, you can stutter and still be cool. And then the 4th one was, you'll be on a podcast with Mike.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And I totally agree with all that. And I hope that many more kids nowadays who stutter are getting those same messages. And I suspect that getting it from mentors who have been there, done that, is probably a powerful way for them to get that message. So if, I don't know what the logistics of this would be, but like you said, a lot of kids, you feel like you're in a tribe of one.
Yeah.
It's not a tribe, and it's not how humans are meant to live. So that'd be cool if there was some mechanisms going forward. And now, with Zoom and all the online stuff, it's pretty easy to get people that stutter in the same room with each other, low cost or, no cost, virtually no logistics if you already have a computer. But to get, kids in the same Zoom room with positive mentors that stutter, that have been there, done that, would probably be really useful. And that's something that people get focused on at some point.
Yeah, more people stammering openly on TV, the radio, not necessarily talking about stuttering, just talking about whatever they are doing, but stuttering, because it's okay to stutter, just a different way of speaking.
Yeah, and I think the media, from what I have seen, the media in the UK has covered stuttering more than any other country in the world by far, and I think the BSA and, the Don, your group, the Doncaster Stammering Association, which is a part of the BSA, right? British Stammering Association, now known as STAMA. But that, that you guys have done a really good job of pushing stuttering awareness and getting the media interested, and that just spreads the word because, and it's spreading the word for non-stutterers out there to have more awareness, but maybe more important even than that is just spreading the word for other kids who stutter, other people that stutter, to hear stuttering being talked about. Like it's not a big deal, like it's okay. And, so they feel more comfortable emerging out of their shell.
Definitely. Spot on, Mike. Agree 100%.
Great talking with you, Bob. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And
I've enjoyed it as well. Cool.
Nice one. You enjoy your fall over there.
And you, all the friends around the world, stay safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. See you.